I'm gonna stop yawning. Is this plugged in right? It's plugged in, okay. I think we're all ready to do this. Morning, good afternoon, good evening, YouTube. Today I'm going to be talking about Esther. This is going to be a very massive video. I have a whole script written out that I was just going to read off, but I don't know what in the world I'd put to the video if I did that. So I'm just going to try to what was I even going to say? Try to hash my way through it. I'm recording. It's recording. Okay, let's get going. This video is going to be late as always because I never get these things done on time. I say I'm going to upload every Wednesday and I never upload every Wednesday. Well, sometimes I do, but anyway, let's get to the topic of whatever. The Book of Esther. It's a short book, only 10 chapters long, and it's actually one of only 2 books in the Bible that, I believe it's only 2. I'm stating this as fact, but probably someone's going to light me on fire for stating the wrong information. I believe it's one of only 2 books in the Bible that does not mention the name of God anywhere. The other one being the Song of Solomon. But what's fascinating about Esther is God is still in it everywhere. Like when you're looking through it, God seems like he's hidden, but he's actually, he is hidden, but it's he appears in so many different situations in the actual book. And I'm not going to be able to do an all-encompassing, study on the entire book. A lot of preachers that are much better than me have already done that. But there's a couple things that are interesting, mainly about the name of the book and a couple events that happen. And I've got some little cards here, but I'm gonna probably have to switch to another camera view for this, so you can see them better, because I don't think you want me holding these up, trying to show you in front of the camera. The name Esther, it is comprised of the Hebrew letters, and I'm gonna mispronounce all of this. It's Aleph, Samech, Tav, Resh. Now, it's also read from right to left. Now, when looking at the individual letters, Aleph is used for God. I guess you say that's a letter of God. It's the very first letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and it's used to define, God the Father. Fascinating thing about the letter Aleph, though, is it is a silent letter when used on its own. Unless you put another little, to call, I believe, Nakuds on Hebrew. I'm trying to learn Hebrew and doing a terrible job at it. But unless you put these other little symbols in or around the letters, Aleph is actually a silent letter, which is very fascinating that Esther, the word Esther, starts out with a silent letter that means God. But then if you take the remaining 3 letters, Samech, Tav, and Resh, you get a word which is, let me look at my giant Hebrew concordance right here and see if I can read it off for you. You get a word called Sathar. I'm pronouncing that wrong, I know for sure. It says Sathar means to conceal, to hide, or to shelter. So, from all these definitions, the word Sathar means to conceal or to hide something. And it's pretty fascinating that you can break down the word Esther into Aleph, which is a silent letter. It appears like it doesn't exist at all throughout the entire book. But then the rest of the word Esther means, or Satar, however you pronounce it, means hidden. That's like God he's there at the beginning, he's there in the book, but he's hidden throughout the entire thing. What some people call coincidences that happen is what I truly believe is just God working through situations in the background. So, getting on to the story of Esther, where it says in chapter 2, verse 7, it mentions that Esther's real name was Hadashara. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. But then her cousin Mordecai, after Hadashara's parents died, he took her in as his own daughter. And then he also told her to hide her lineage, hide the fact that she was Jewish, and then change the name to Esther. Now, it's something that I'm not entirely sure why he had her do that, why they hid her name, because later on in the book, Mordecai he actually proclaims that he's a Jew. Where is it here? Therefore he had told him that he was a Jew. So it was like, Mordecai openly announced he was Jewish, but he wanted Esther to hide the fact that she was, which is why he changed her name to Esther, which means hidden. It's pretty fascinating. So in all that, then it seems, it's one of those things you could think, oh, there's a bunch of coincidences that happened after this with Mordecai, where It says, he walked every day before the court of the woman's house to know how Esther did and what became of her. So he was, out there every day before the gate. And in that, he was able to, he just so happened to overhear that there was a plot to overthrow King Ahasuerus, which then, he told Esther, and then from that, it so happened to be written down in the Chronicles. And then one night the king couldn't sleep, and he just so happened to have the Chronicles read to him, which then he found out about Mordecai doing that. So you could say, oh, it's coincidence that this happened. Oh, it just happened, happened to happen this way. But those are the things which, sure, you can pass them off as coincidences, but there's no coincidence when God's involved. When God's involved in something, every little detail is planned out. And even in another situation that happened with Esther, where it says her parents died. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing. That was a tragedy that happened. Yet, God was able to use that tragedy for good. Because if you think about it, and, I don't know this for a fact, but this was something that came into my mind, is it says that Mordecai, every day walked before the gate at the woman's house. I'm guessing that Mordecai was not married and that he did not have a family to take care of. And that he was able to dedicate himself completely to trying to protect Esther and prayer, as it later says, in chapter 4. Now, her parents may not have been able to do that if they were still alive. If her father was still taking care of his family, they may not have been able to do that, which in turn would not have stopped the plot to kill King Ahasuerus. Again, I don't know that for certain, but it's like, even when we can't see it, even when it's hidden from us, God can still turn stuff around. The other thing in this book, which is pretty much, I guess you say, the entire point of the book, is Esther's beauty. It mentions, repeatedly, and that, like I said, that's the entire reason why the story happened, is because how beautiful it says Esther was. How beautiful it says she was. Now, that's one of those things which, I'm sure everybody knows, you can't choose what you look like. You can't choose, how beautiful you are. And that's just another one of those details that someone could say, oh, it's just, luck, or she won the genetic lottery and she just so happened to be beautiful. But that, again, is God crafting every single bit of the story. He's crafting everything. He crafts your looks. Everything about you has been designed perfectly, as Mordecai says, for such a time as this. You don't know how many things in your life are brought about by God putting them there. And it's not that you don't know how many, it's everything in your life. Every little thing which happens to you and which has happened, and everything that makes you you, down to the way you look, the way you sound, your friends, where you were born, everything, even including the amount of hairs on your head, as God says, that are numbered. God put it all there for a reason. He put it all there for such a time as this. And moments will happen in your life when it's confusing, and you'll be confused, and you won't know where to turn or what's going on or why God had something happen a certain way. I'm sure there were plenty of moments back in Esther's life that were like that, where it's like you're wondering why did something turn out this way? Why did this happen, this way? Or why didn't this happen to this person? Why did it happen to me? Or why isn't my life working out the same as, someone else's, even though I'm following God the exact same way? Which is another lesson which I forgot to bring up, where Mordecai, he didn't hide his lineage as a Jew, yet Esther did. She hid it. Both of them were right in what they seemed to be right in what they were doing, and both of them did completely opposite things. We have to be careful in our lives not to look to what someone else has done to justify what we're doing, or to even see what we should do. We have to be careful not to look to man's approval to what God is telling us to do. Don't look to what your friends are doing to approve of what God's calling you to do in your life. Because God might be calling them, God probably most likely is calling them to do something completely different. To one person, he wants them to hide their lineage. To another lineage, however you say it. To one person, he wants her, to hide the fact that she's a Jew. To Mordecai, he's supposed to proclaim it. So just don't look to other people for approval on what God's telling you to do. Yes, we have to be careful. We have to ask. What do you call it? You have to make sure you're not just following your own emotions and things. You have to make sure you are actually following the Word of God. And you can look to elders. You can look to people who are more spiritually sound than you to get advice. But don't look to friends, I think, for advice on that. Look to someone that you can respect who's going to tell you the truth. Because it's a hard fact, but a lot of times friends give the worst advice because We might care too much about, about making you feel good, and we're too concerned about keeping you as a friend, and we're not going to tell you the hard truth. So I think it's just don't. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you ask friends for advice. I'm getting off on a tangent here, like I always do. But anyway, back to just the story of the book. I really think the whole message of Esther is just to keep doing what's right, even if you don't know why, even if you don't know the outcome, and even when God seems hidden, you can still just keep going forward in what is the right action to do, and almost the next right thing to do. And eventually, God will show Himself. God will, at the end of it all, at the end of situations, you can look back and you'll see that God was throughout all of it, even though you couldn't see Him through it. Looking back, you'll notice He was everywhere. And I think it's always beautiful to look back and see how much God has influenced things in your life, when in the moment you're terrified, in the moment you don't believe it. And just look back and go, it's like, why did I ever doubt? Why did I ever doubt God was here? Because He was with me every step of the way. So that's everything. Again, late video as always. I gotta figure out a way to get these done on time better. But again, I can't worry about that. I just gotta keep putting them out, and I'll just keep trying. So anyway, Lord willingly, I will see you all later.